Hello guys, yeah, welcome back to my channel. This is Seam and Stitches. On today's tutorial we are going to be making a bodysuit with bustier and with a Queen Anne's neckline. Alright, first thing you do is to mark your starting point and then you mark all the length measurements. Watch my video on the basic top pattern for more understanding on this. The next thing, you mark your shoulder line, and then on that shoulder line you come down by 1 inch and mark your armhole line. All right, so after that you go ahead and mark your dart line, which is going to be your bust pan, your nipple to nipple measurement. Now I stopped at 1 inch before my hip line because that is where the dart length will be. All right, so the next thing you do is to mark your neck width. For the neck width I used 2.5 inches, and then after that you mark your high bust. The high bust is where the neck depth for the top is going to be. The Queen Anne's neckline will rest on that neck depth, which is going to be on your high bust line. So for this I made it 7 inches depth. So the depth is 7 inches, and that's where my Queen Anne neckline is. So after that, on that 7 inches point, I marked 6 inches, and with that I have 3 inches by the sides. So yours could be more than that and it could be little depending on how you want the style to be. So that is how you achieve that Queen Anne's neckline. Next thing you do is to mark all your round measurement, and then you mark the midpoint of your armhole and you connect it to your bust measurement that you have. So you connect it at the bust line, and also you connect the midpoint of your armhole to your shoulder line. So you go on and join all your round measurements together at the side to bring out the silhouette of the pattern you are drawing. Alright, if you notice, from the natural curve to the hip, so I marked the crotch line from your natural curve to the hip. I made it the measurement of your crotch. So your crotch measurement is what you're going to be marking there. Next thing, you go on and mark your dart line. So remember the 4 inches that we marked the other time, you connect it together to give you a straight line, and then on the natural curve point you're going to be marking 1 inch at the right side and 1 inch at the wrong side. So you connect it together to give you a double pointed dart. So that's how you're going to be making your bustier. On your high bust line you're going to be marking 1 inch at the right side and 1 inch at the wrong side as well. So the emphasis will be on the high bust to make it to be firm, and also on the natural curve to give you the shape. So the bust line is going to be the one holding the two sides together. I want you to watch my video on a bustier top to have a clearer understanding on this.
Trust me.
The next thing you do now is to add your seam allowance to the side seam. So you mark your seam allowance, whatever you want to use as added allowances, either 1 inch, 1.5 or 2. So you mark it out, and then also on the armhole line, that line that you have your high bust, you extend it by 1 inch and you connect it to your seam allowance line. You connect it to your seam allowance line. This is just to give ease at the high bust area. So you're still going to stitch it, so you're going to just give it ease at the high bust area. Next thing you do now is to take you measure 5 inches from your natural curve line. So you mark that 5 inches line, indicate it, and then from your natural curve you take your crotch measurement. Remember I said it, you take your crotch measurement. Alright, so on that 5 inches line you mark your hip measurement, whatever you have as your hip measurement, round hip measurement divided by 4, you mark it on that line. And on the crotch line you mark 4 inches from the center. So you mark 4 inches from the center, and then you connect that 4 inches from the center with a curved line. You connect it to your hip line. You remember that hip line? You connect it together. It's going to give you a slant shape. You can make it to have a sharp slant shape or a rounded slant shape, just to pass along your torso. So that is how you take that measurement there. So don't forget, from your natural curve you mark 5 inches, and then from your natural curve again you mark your crotch depth. So on that 5 inches line you mark your hip measurement divided by 4, and on the crotch you mark 4 inches, which is going to be where you're going to be joining the front to the back. So mark it like that. And with that, you are done. You are free to go ahead and cut out your pattern. You are done with the front part of your top. Just the front part of your top. So the next thing you want to do now is to mark out your back pattern. So because the fabric I'm using is not going to be is not a stretchy one, so I'm going to be adding the zip allowance at the back for the back pattern. And then before you mark the length measurement, you're going to be marking 4 inches as your starting point. So you measure 4 inches from the top of your pattern. So because the neck is going to be high at the back, so you mark that 4 inches to make your starting point. The next thing you do now is to mark your shoulder line. Then on that shoulder line you come down by 1 inch. You mark your armhole, and then you mark your neck width. So that neck width, we used 2.5 inches, so you mark that neck width, and then you connect the neck width with your armhole line. Then after that, on that neck width point, you're going to come up by 2 inches. So that is what you're connecting directly from that 2 inches neck width. You're going to connect it directly to your armhole. I hope you understand this. Just watch what I'm doing. You connect it to your armhole. You connect it to your armhole to give your shoulder slant. Then after this, you're going to mark a round neckline to indicate your neck for the back. So it's very easy like that. The next thing you do now is to mark out your dart line. The same 4 inches that we used for the front is what we are using for the back. And then the dart for the back is going to stop on the hip line. I hope you understand this. The hip line that we marked, you're going to stop your dart there, and then it's going to be starting on 9 inches from the shoulder. So from the peak of your shoulder you mark 9 inches. That is where your back dart is going to start from. On the natural curve as well, you are going to be marking 1 inch on the right side and 1 inch on the left side. Then you connect it together to the top and to the bottom to give you a double pointed dart. Then after marking the dart, you go on and take all your round measurements on your bust, on your under bust, natural curve, hip, and you take the round measurements and connect them together. So the next thing you want to do now, watch closely, you're going to mark between 4 to 5 inches depending on the height of the person you're sewing this for. You're going to mark it after the crotch line. It's just an extension that you need underneath your loin, your groin area. You know, where you're wearing your pants, there's always an overlay. So that is what we are going to do now. So you mark it as an extension, and then on that line you mark the 4 inches that we marked for the front part. On that line you mark your 4 inches as well, and you connect that 4 inches with a curved line to your hip line. You know, on your hip line you marked your hip measurement divided by 4. So that extension that we are making for the crotch, you're going to mark your 4 inches on that extension, and you connect it to whatever you have as your hip measurements. So to have a well laid back line, you're going to be coming in by 1 inch on your natural curve line. From the zip allowance you come in by 1 inch, and then you connect that extra reduction of 1 inch, you connect it to the top of your pattern, and you connect it down to that crotch area of your pattern. So at the middle, at the natural curve, you have something like a curved or a slopy line. So that's what makes your zip line to be slim and not bulge out when you wear it. So this is a perfect technique for sewing zippers. So if you have it that way, it's going to lay flat. And with that, you are good with your pattern. You can go ahead and cut your back pattern. It is very easy and very simple to make. Go ahead and cut it out now.
Trust me.